Happy Friday, Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and it is hotter than HE double hockey sticks in the Valley of the Sun. It was like 1 million degrees yesterday, and I'm not kidding. It was that hot. It's going to be that hot, I guess, again today. Everybody stay inside, and if you're lucky enough, go on vacation somewhere other than here. I got a big announcement to make. I got Jason from our guys in Colorado joining us today. We've got some updates for our audience in Colorado. A lot of things happening up at the station up there, and we're going to bring you up to speed on those things. I'm going to be on vacation starting next Wednesday. The professor, Glenn Biddle, is going to be taking over my spot while I'm gone. He'll actually be on my show on Monday, and then Jason's already had him on his show up in Colorado as well. So we'll kind of be introducing him to the Phoenix office, or our office, the Phoenix listening audience on Monday. Glenn is, I think you're going to love him. He's a great guy, real smart guy, history buff extraordinaire. So we got a lot of things to cover. It was jobs reports today and all of those other things. But before we get to all the economic stuff, I wanted to bring Jason on. Jason, good morning.
Good morning.
And do you have an update for us on what's going on in Colorado?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of customers coming in and buying products, and they're seeing some roof tiles missing, and then some disrepair at the front of the station, and there's some questions about the roof that they helped donate. We have an independent station here, and a very strong audience that's very much wants to keep this station running smoothly and be on the air. And unfortunately, the station really was, Cody and Michael and Sharon really were just doing a Hercules-type job keeping the programs on the air. When the roof was leaking several years ago and they had to fix it, they asked for donations. Those donations came in, and that money was spent for fixing the roof. Now, this is a 100-year-old building that we're operating out of, and other things can go wrong. The roof is fixed, but the drainage was clogged. It was clogged so badly that the machine that they sent to the roof the first time to unclog it, they busted the machine.
No, the clog. Correct me if I'm wrong. This was something that it was underneath the ground.
It was the drainage that goes from the roof. The drainage that goes from the roof of the building down to the street, and somewhere in between, things were just not working. I guess there was some PVC piping in there that got caught, and things were clogging up against that. It was wedged in so deep that they couldn't yank it out. It was a blockage of monumental proportions, basically, but they did clear that out. The damage that was done in the building is already being fixed because the roof is warrantied, and so they're getting everything repaired for free. Everything's getting done with the warranty.
Okay, so the roof, that's the roof situation.
Correct. Now,
right.
the running of the station, once again, Cody and Michael have been doing all of the work for a radio station that probably needs more, like 5 or 6 people running it. They've been keeping this thing going here in Colorado, and as time has gone on, and Michael is getting older and kind of getting ready to retire, there hasn't been a good replacement for what they do. And Joe's idea to get an office started here in the radio station and have a new show and really get some excitement here has put us in a position that we're here working with the radio station hands-on. I'm looking at my partner Brian at this moment. He's getting our streaming up and running. We're hoping today, maybe by next week, but we're going to have streaming up and back. I know that's been a real bummer for a lot of our listeners, but that's going to be up and running. So you Arizona guys that were streaming our show, you're going to be getting that back very soon.
So right now we're working. We could be back streaming as early as today. I don't want to put any undue pressure on Brian, but by next week the streaming issue should be resolved. One of the things that I want to make people aware of, and Jason kind of pointed it out, we're in the process now of helping KHNC and getting things squared away. One of the big problems with the streaming that they had is it wasn't theirs. So they were kind of at the mercy of somebody else. And when the streaming was lost, I guess it's now been about 3 weeks ago or so, the person that that they were using had quit their job or got fired. I don't know all the details. It really doesn't matter. And the person that they replaced them with didn't know how to fix it. So we essentially decided, you know what, that's not good enough. And now we're going to, KHNC is going to have complete and total control over the streaming feed. And obviously, Jason, Brian, myself, Sharon, Michael, Cody, we're all going to make sure that it's all working properly and to get that back up. Then we had an issue with their it's called the smart system. It controls the station, and it tells, I guess for lack of a better term, it tells the station what to play next, right? Like fire.
Let me could jump in. Michael was not a radio guy, and Don Wiedemann, the guy who's the founder of KHNC, they used the smart system for the radio broadcasting, which a lot of it can be recorded, and you can have a smaller crew. And what happened was, we're going to the break, but Michael was the one that really self-taught himself on a very complex system to keep this radio station going.
We'll be back right after the break. Patriot Radio News Hour, 800-951-0592. Joe Jaquin, Jason Walker. We're talking about Colorado. You know what's so important is this is it. It's one of the few places talking about the station up in Colorado that's unique because it's truly an independent, right? It's not owned by some big, massive conglomerate, and there's less and less and less of these out there. And it really is getting to the point where you can't get a lot of the information that a station like this provides because of that. Because all of a sudden these big companies come in, they just buy it all up, and they play, all your pre-programmed stuff, right? You get Hannity or Dr. Laura or you get the liberal guys or whatever it may be, and that's all you get. And the amount of work and effort that goes into this, I've been telling you for a while now, Colorado, great things are coming. And I know it's been painful, but they're coming. We're talking about the smart system, and we've had some issues. So if you turned on the station and there's some dead air here or there, that's because there's an issue with the smart system. We've actually got it a new box, and we're in the process of converting it over. But, Jason, we're actually going to be trained on how to use that, correct?
Yeah, so as we were leaving into the break, I was talking about Michael, and Michael's been running the smart system for years, and he basically self-trained himself on a fairly complex system, and that's what we've been running on at KHNC for years. And he, admittedly told me as I was getting involved in trying to get the training set up that a lot of what he does is just kind of rigging things and making sure things work in the right spots, but he doesn't fully understand. So as part of our fix here, Cody, his son, and Brian and myself, we're gonna start a training program with the Smarts company. They're excited to really get us up and running the right way, and hopefully within maybe a month or two, to however long it takes for us to figure it out, we're going to be able to run this system and just eliminate all those burps and hiccups and all those problems and the dead air that you end up hearing on a day-to-day basis here.
So we're closing. Matter of fact, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, training starts next week?
We're hoping Friday next week.
We're next Friday. We're working diligently. And I wanted to bring you all up to speed because it's important. I think it's great for everybody else to hear. This is how hard it is. I mean, it's incredibly difficult to do this anymore and to be a one-off because it's not cost-effective, right? It's much easier if you own 500 stations and you just blanket the broadcast on hundreds of stations. You just run the same thing everywhere, and you have we talk about KXXT. They got one engineer for 500 stations, right? But that's because most of them are on autopilot, and but nonetheless, as promised, we are close. I know it hasn't been as fast as we like, but what we like about what we're doing there, this is going to be long-term solutions. We don't want to put bubble gum and duct tape and try to keep it going. We want to make it to where long-term all of these issues are going to hopefully go away. And if nothing else, it's going to be greatly minimized. So I thought it was a good time to address that. I will let you know, or Jason will let you know. Hopefully, I'll be able to come out Monday, say the streaming's up, or hey, we're real.
Hey, Joe. Yeah. So as far as I can tell from Brian, I'm watching Brian work. I think we might be streaming right now.
We may be already. Hey, look at that! Listen, I did not time that. I promise, I did not time that. But give Brian, give him an attaboy and a gold star. Looks like we're back streaming on KHNC, and again, there you go. That just
cut us some slack though, because you never know if there might be a few hiccups here with this. But it looks like we have streaming up. Brian can come in here. Come here.
So and just so you know, Jason and Brian, they do our afternoon show in Colorado. So if you'd like, you can go out to America Newsnet or KHNC 1360 The Lion in Fort Colorado. Well, I guess Johnstown, technically Johnstown, Colorado. Jason and Brian do a show every day. Which you guys are on from 3 to 4 in Colorado?
Yeah. Hey, Joe and listeners, it's Brian. 3 to 4 p.m. Mountain Time, Monday through Thursday, and based on the streaming computer settings, it indicates that we're streaming. I'm trying to get my laptop fired up and confirm through a web page that the stream is actually being received. But people won't be able to access that stream yet from the KHNC AmericanNewsNet.com website until we update the radio button on there.
Okay,
but for the time being, they can go to shoutcast.com and search for KHNC or 1360 or The Lion, and I think that'll be temporarily how we can get listeners pointed to that web streaming feed. But I have yet to confirm from another computer that it's happening. But based on the streaming computer, it sure looks like it's been streaming for the last 5 minutes.
Okay, there you go. There's an update. So we're using Shoutcast to do it. Brian, I appreciate your efforts. It takes a village, if you will, and so we're getting it going. And I promise here, give us just bear with us a little bit longer. We'll have it all rocking and rolling for you. But it's something where it's just that important to us. You know, one of the things, and we talk about what makes us different than, you know, a guy with a website or some of these gold dealers that rip you off on TV, besides our great pricing, besides the fact that we want to give you the news and educate you while we're doing it in the website, allamericangold.com, where we provide all the articles and the videos. We always put it back where we found it. And KHNC has been such a huge, huge part of the success of our company, the fact that we've been able to do this for over 2 decades. We've been on the air up there in Colorado, and we've kind of seen it all, right? A lot of you remember when the station burnt down and we moved in, or they moved into the building they're in today, and the old bank building, to the fact now that we've opened a second office up there, and now Jason and Brian are helping Sharon and Michael and Cody in getting this station. When we're done, it's going to be better than ever. That's just what I think. I think we're just gonna nail this thing, and we're gonna be able to get all of that information out there. And it's such.
And Joe, I have one more thing I
want
to say before I leave. Those donations that you've been hearing for the last bunch of years to help this station continue on and on. Our goal here at KHNC is to get this programming go up to being a professional level. and we're not going to be able to have to ask for everyone to donate all the time. Now, we may need some help in the short-term future to get a couple of projects done, but as Cody just told me, one of the comments that Michael is famous for saying that when your donation money is sent in, it's to pay for these things around here. You don't see the owners and the managers of the station driving around in Mercedes-Benz. The money is used wisely.
That's exactly right. That's a great point. And we appreciate all of the support that has been given to the radio station, to us. And really, it's a community. It's the only way we're going to be able to make change. We all got to stick together. We say it all the time. Do business with like-minded people. Support like-minded people. And it's critical. And it's one of those things where, especially today with the internet, and Jason, I think you'd agree with this, right? You can always find somebody that, hey, I'll sell it to you for $5 less, right? I mean,
yeah, there's always somebody out there.
There's always somebody that's willing to do that. But then what you end up having, I liken it to like the Walmart effect, right? Walmart went into all these small towns and everybody went out of business. And now the only thing left is Walmart, and the town's devastated, and everybody's on drugs, and there's no opportunity. That's what happened. And we fight the good fight, and at least I know up there in the Front Range, you guys aren't going to let that happen. And thank you all so much for your patience and the support, not only for us but for the radio station as well. We've talked about that enough. So there's the update. We'll keep you posted. Jason, did you even get a chance to see the jobs number today?
No, man, I've been so busy this morning.
Trying to get all right.
Yeah.
By the way, you and Brian have done great. I can't tell you how excited, and I just feel how fortunate I am to have both of you guys a part of our team. And I hope all of the people up there recognize what you guys have been doing, even though it's been real quiet. You don't notice it yet, but you're gonna. We're really gonna get this thing going. But big number today. Well, it wasn't big, but it was good, right? Over 200,000 jobs were created in the month of June. It was a little bit better. I guess the expectation was for about 200,000. I think the exact number was 213,000. The unemployment rate did tick up, so it went from 3.8 back to 4%. I think a lot of that was hey, kids graduate from high school and enter the workforce, graduate from college, enter the workforce. I think that's kind of a natural thing to happen this time of the year. We'll wait to see if that's a trend. I mean, it would be great. Wouldn't it be great if we could get the labor force participation rate to go the other direction? But we'll have to wait. I don't think that's the case. I do think that it's just part of where the calendar fell out. But none of it, you know what? Neither one of those things matters nearly as much as did you get paid? 4 cents was the amount of extra money people were making this month. 4 cents an hour. It was that missed expectations, right? We've been waiting for these wages, Jason. Are we ever going to get them?
No, I don't think so. We talk about stagflation. I hear it on your show. I hear it on our show. All I see is, I don't know. It seems to me it's like a train getting ready to wreck, and you have somebody at the front of the train saying everything's going to be okay, and it seems like you constantly hear on the mainstream media is it's going to be okay. Oh, the jobs are good. Yeah, they just want everybody to be calm and relaxed until the big crash. That's what it feels like to me when I watch the news.
Yeah, and I just, how long has it been, though, that we've been hearing that the wages are just around the corner, and they never seem, every time we get around the corner, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, 4 cents an hour is not going to pay the bills.
That's not quite going to work. I mean, don't get me wrong. 4 cents is 4 cents, but, I think the average work week's about 35 hours. That equates to about $1.40 a week. And extra wages. And then my guess is if we researched it, it's probably going to be whatever cities and states had set a higher minimum wage, and that's really where the gains are at. Or could be just a few guys at the very, very top got an extra couple $100 billion, and couple $100 billion, and made it up. But that was where it broke out. It was a good number, but it was really more of the same. A lot of part-time jobs. Wages weren't great. The matter of fact, if you didn't seasonally adjust the numbers, it kind of scary. The exact same amount of jobs created this June as last June. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I thought it would be more, but unseasonally adjusted, the number was the exact same. So you made an extra 4 cents, but not a lot of extra jobs. I think the big news was the tariffs. So, and I know that I'm sure, and maybe more in Colorado because there is more farming there. The tariffs started. So at midnight last night, Eastern Standard Time, the United States imposed tariffs on $34 billion worth of Chinese products. At about 5 minutes later, and I was actually watching Bloomberg while this was happening. About 5 minutes later, China announced the same. They've imposed $34 billion worth of tariffs, most of this affecting farmers, soybeans, hogs, things of that nature. We'll talk about that when we return.
This is the Phyllis Schlafly Report, a daily commentary continuing the conservative pro-family legacy of Phyllis Schlafly. Now, the president of Phyllis Schlafly Eagles, Ed Martin.
For decades, China has been in denial about the independence and freedom of the island nation of Taiwan, whose real name is the Republic of China. Taiwan was formed by those who fled the Communist Chinese Revolution in 1949. In 1971, globalists seeking to appease Communist China arranged for the United Nations to expel Taiwan. Early the following year, globalist Henry Kissinger persuaded President Richard Nixon to turn his back on Taiwan by visiting Communist China and giving China legitimacy. China and globalists have been trying to ostracize Taiwan ever since. They even prevented Taiwan from competing in the Olympics since 1976 as the independent country that it is. But the sentiment on the island of Taiwan is increasingly independent, as globalism is being rejected there like almost everywhere else in the world. Taiwan's current president, Tsai Ing-wen, is more willing to assert the nationalism for Taiwan that Trump asserts for America. Recently, China demanded that businesses stop referring to Taiwan, Tibet, and Hong Kong as countries. China's demand reached 36 foreign airlines, insisting that the airlines stop referring to Taiwan as a country. In the face of all of this, President Trump continues to reject globalist pressure like those that China is demanding. Trump will, quote, stand up for Americans resisting efforts by the Chinese Communist Party to impose Chinese political correctness on American companies and citizens, Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders announced. Sarah Sanders declared that the Trump administration is telling China to stop threatening and coercing American airline carriers and its citizens. That's right. China has no authority to push around our citizens and our businesses. Then Sanders used the O and the C words, which not even past Republican presidents were willing to do. Quote, this is Orwellian nonsense, Sanders said, and part of a growing trend by the Chinese Communist Party to impose its political views on American citizens and private companies. George Orwell, a former leftist himself, was a visionary in criticizing the communist mindset. It's doubtful that any press secretary has ever applied Orwell's truths so properly to the communist attempts at message control.
This has been the Phyllis Schlafly Report from Phyllis Schlafly Eagles. When it comes to international trade, other countries have long been taking advantage of the American people and our generous spirit. At phyllisschlafly.com, we've got strategies to balance trade and protect the interests of American companies, resources, and citizens. For more, go to phyllisschlafly.com. Thanks for listening, and join us again for the Phyllis Schlafly Report.
Woods, 800-951-0592. Gold and silver, pretty benign on the news of the tariffs, and I expect that, right? They'll want to keep it under wraps today, right? Because they don't want people to freak out about what's happening. Gold's down $2, $12.56. Excuse me. Silver's down a nickel, $15.96. Man, I'll get it right. You know what? It's time. I need a vacation. You can tell. Before we get into the tariff suits, I want to also address the static issue we've been having here in Phoenix. Hopefully on Monday. For Monday's show, we will have the issue resolved. Got Frank the phone guy coming in. This should be the last step. CenturyLink has been out several times in the last week and a half. They think they've got their issues fixed. We got one more thing that we've got to do in the studio itself, and then I think hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have that. So, Jason, you guys aren't the only one.
Yeah, the static actually made me feel a little better yesterday. It makes me feel like we're not the only ones with problems in the world.
You know what? I've always got my cell phone on standby, right, in case we got to switch to the cell phone. But it's like I tell everybody, I do my show with my hands, so having the cell phone, it makes it hard for me. But I think on Monday, fingers crossed, but on Monday we may be past it finally, and so I'm excited to hopefully have resolution on that as well. But really interesting. So the United States, we went through with the $34 billion. China, of course, immediately responded. But now there's been rumors circulating, and actually they've been circulating for a while here, ever since the whole trade war thing started, that U.S. companies were having difficulty and or delays while trying to get goods through customs in China. This morning, Reuters is reporting that several major Chinese ports are delaying the clearing of goods from the United States as officials await further instructions from the Chinese government. Obviously, they must have got one instruction, which was, hey, don't let any stuff go from U.S. go in. And they're saying that the delays could seriously disrupt imports. And, again, there's so many ways to fight this thing. Here's the one thing China knows. We can't go dollar for dollar with the U.S. because we don't import nearly enough stuff. Right? Remember, because Trump said, hey, we're going to start with $50 billion, $34 billion right now. I think next week or the week after, the other $16 billion kicks in. And then Trump says Trump said if China responded, which they did today, that he was going to hit them for another, I think 2 rounds of $200 billion. I think he said something like $400 billion. Today, I think I saw a tweet where he said $500 billion. And we don't actually import $500 billion worth of stuff from the Chinese. So it's going to be one of those things where, China doesn't import it from us. I had that backwards. They don't actually import, so they have to do something else. One of the things that, at least from Reuters this morning, is they're just not going to let the car go in. I don't know what that means. Does that mean we don't get paid? I don't know exactly how that works, right? If you've delivered it to the port, but the port doesn't actually process it, what happens? Apparently, do you know?
It sounds like some of that oil that just sits out in the ocean, depending on how much oil they want to import or export, and they just have those oil tankers sitting out there in the middle of the ocean to help fix the prices.
Well, they do that. Of course, now at $75, $80 a barrel, right? Miraculously, all those tankers go away, and then when the price gets too low, what do? They just fill them up and they wait. Right?
That's right.
And force the price higher. And it's all these games that they play. And then, of course, they can manipulate the currency, right? And China's already done that. I mean, their currency's fallen about somewhere around 7%, which negates a lot of the tariff stuff. Then, of course, the ultimate weapon, if you will, not buying treasuries. And so these are some of the things that these are the unknowns, right? We don't know. Will China do all of them, some of them, none of them? We don't know. What we do know is that they came out with another comment again today that they keep insisting that they don't want the trade war, but they will respond. I guess in a kind of a direct challenge to President Trump, who says, hey, listen, if you respond, we're going to make it worse.
The way I look at it, I think the tariffs and the trade wars is going to get worse. I think this is just the beginning. I think you're going to see this stuff get heated and get hotter and get more news attention, and it's going to get worse and worse. The central bankers, I don't think, are really affected too heavily by this. They can move their money wherever they want to put it. I think we're in a situation like just before the 1929 crash. J.P. Morgan and John Rockefeller and these bankers silently left the market before the crash so that they didn't have to feel the losses of all those stocks going down. I mean, look at the stock market this year. We're halfway through the year and it's done nothing. And to me, it means there's a lot of big companies like Walmart buying back their stocks, keeping the market there. But I mean, how are we to know when these guys are pulling their money out? There's no indication. We don't know when they're pulling out. And when the market's not skyrocketing like it did in 2017, why? Why isn't it doing the same thing? I think the big players are pulling their money out, and the trade and the tariffs with China is just a huge distraction. It's a lot of attention being played while bankers move their money into another market.
Well, I just fascinating, and it's great to have these other views. You know, it's something I never really thought about that side of it, right? And I talk about it all the time, right? This is the distraction, right? The distraction is the trade war. What's really happening? I never really thought about, hey, they're repositioning and doing all this stuff. I did the article a few weeks ago where the SEC has gotten involved in insider selling at these companies that are buying back all their stock. Like you said, hey, they're the only thing keeping the market. At least the market hasn't gone down. It really hasn't done anything. But when you look at insider selling, it's at levels that we've never seen before. It's at record levels, right? So all the CEOs and the CFOs and the CIOs, right, they're all selling.
I mean, look at how much confidence. Look at how much
shares to prop up the price.
Yeah, look at how much confidence was bred in 2017 with Trump's first year, and the market just shoots upward. You know, if you're a rich guy who has a large percentage of the market, when you pull out, you're going to affect the market. So if you get everybody else racing to the top with you, then you can pull out just at that right moment. And I think that's kind of where we're at, where there's still a lot of small guys racing and
racing to
excited.
Get in, not realizing that under the guise of stock buybacks, a lot of these guys got out.
Absolutely.
So it didn't drive the price down because they had the cover of the buyback. Interesting. That makes a whole lot of sense to me. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back right after the break. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe Jaquin, Jason Walker joining us from the Front Range. And man, Jason, you got me going. You got me going. I'm going to tell you, right?
I was thinking over the break. Check this out. I mean, this is the conspiracy that comes out of me. When the Federal Reserve came into power, when we got coaxed into wars, it was always a sinking ship. So, like in World War I, the Lusitania was sunk, and the Germans told us not to put the ship there, and that got us into the war. In World War II, it was Pearl Harbor. They sank a bunch of ships. We allowed the Japanese to come in there and do that. With Vietnam, it was the Tonkin Bay incident where they sunk a ship. You're talking about ships not being allowed to port in China to unload their goods, right? I mean, if you wanted to,
this is how you connect the dots. Right?
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, okay, if you want a false flag incident to really right before the market plunges, what would plunge a market faster? Don't mind the man behind the curtain, the Federal Reserve. What's going on there in China? A ship gets sunk full of goods or something. A couple of ships sink or whatever while they're not able to port. You tell the American people, look how these evil Chinese, look how bad it is. Now our markets are crashed. It's all their fault.
Boy, let's keep our eyes on the ships. Everything stay afloat. But you said one of the other things, too, you said was this thing's going to get worse?
I think it gets worse. You have to make it seem so horrible so that when the markets do tumble at some point, you have a finger to point. You always have a finger to point.
And, of course, but part of your whole thing is, listen, they already got out. They used the cover of the stock buybacks to get out because it didn't affect the market then, and you don't think they're even in right now. But speaking of getting worse, Russia, who I didn't think was involved in the tariffs, has announced their Prime Minister, Dmitry Medvedev, signed a decree this morning imposing higher tariffs on U.S. products in retaliation for duties on metal imports. That was the steel and aluminum duties. The Russian Prime Ministry said that it will apply tariffs to all imports of fiber optics, equipment for road construction, oil and gas, metals processing, and mining. They're going to impose duties on goods which have Russian-made substitutes, right? In other words, hey, you know what? We can do this part ourselves. We're slapping the tax on you. They say the import, the tariffs will range from 25 to 40%. They're looking at amount of, and it's not a lot. We don't do a lot with Russia, so this is probably more symbolic than anything else. But you're still talking, it's $500 million. That's $500 million of U.S. business that's going to go away with Russia. You think about the $34 billion in Chinese business. That starts, you know what? That's real money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a big piece of news because even though it may not be a large part of the market, it shows that Russia is throwing their support to one side of the fight. So it's a message being sent.
And you know what? It's funny because there was another message sent. I didn't hear anybody talk. Now, obviously, I'm not watching the news 24 hours a day, but I didn't hear a single word about this next one, that China and India are going to get together and form an oil buying club. Right? So you think about the two countries right now outside of probably us, right, that import the most oil, right? It's going to be China and it's going to be India. And reports are now are saying that they are in advanced discussion. So this isn't new, right? This isn't they just met last week. That India and China are coming together to form a oil buying co-op. My guess would be, and I'm just putting dots together here. Let's see. A few months ago, China finally was able to say, you can buy crude oil in our currency. All of a sudden, a few months later, hey, guess what? Our neighbor India over here, we're going to form an oil buying club. You think maybe I got a pretty good idea of the currency they're going to use to buy that oil, don't you think?
Yeah, it's definitely an attack against the Ponzi scheme. Absolutely, it's definitely one to dump dollars. Absolutely.
And I'm just starting to think about, and I'm putting all of these things together, and then I listen to what Jason says and says, hey, listen, it's a ship thing, right? And I'm like, what? Ship thing? Right? And you start listing all these things, and now I'm like, wait a minute, right? And then you go back to the Great Depression, and, hey, why wasn't J.P. Morgan and the Rockefellers, why weren't they wiped out? Right? Why weren't they wiped out? Everybody else got wiped out. They didn't. Yeah,
there was actually a market crash in 1920, and they had moved the amount of dollars being printed and put into circulation had gone way up, and then they crashed it and purposely crashed the market in 1920. From 1920 to 1929, they were building the money back up, but these bankers introduced a new type of loan, and it was one that you only had to have 10% of the value of the loan, and so everybody was jumping in. And the thing about this loan is it could be called in a 24-hour period. And so you better believe the Rockefellers and the J.P. Morgans weren't holding any of those loans when the market went, and everybody was calling their loans in a 24-hour period of time.
Well, you think about it now, 10%, right? Hardly anybody can even come up with 10% to do anything anymore. And it's so funny because you think about too, and I want to. I know we're running up against the break, but this is something what the Federal Reserve is doing hasn't been done, right? Talking about, normally when you're raising interest rates, right, you've got GDP at 4 and 5%, right, and you've got wage inflation, and you have all the wages that growing at 4, 5, 6%. And they start hiking wages. We're essentially raising rates, and of course they got the bond program, so they're trying to take money out at a time when we don't really have all the things that we normally would associate with that. And it's just another recipe for disaster. Patriot Radio News Hour, final segment on a Friday. Final segment on this Friday, 800-951-0592. Dow's up about 100 points on the, I guess they're liking the jobs report. I don't know why. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was okay. But without any money, it doesn't matter, right? Does it matter if it was 50,000 jobs or 500,000 jobs if nobody got any more money? Right, and this is what we've been in. We've been in this thing, and they keep telling us and keep telling us. Something obviously is broken. My guess is what is broken is the number, right? How they actually calculate the number is probably logically what's broken. Right, the unemployment rate isn't 4%. There's a reason why 96 million people aren't in the workforce. And let's face it, what are we up to? Almost 30 million part-time jobs out of the 150 million. I mean, this was a number, part-time jobs used to be less than 10% of the total workforce. And now it's gotten massive. And really, what's the biggest growing, and we talk about this all the time, we know 65 and older is the fastest growing section of the labor force. But you know what else is the biggest growing section of the labor force? Someone that already has a full-time job now getting a part-time job. Fastest growing segment of the workforce. And, of course, even and then the type, right, which is what I would call a 1099 job. Now they're saying within the next couple of years, 1 in 3 jobs will be essentially one of those, independent contractor type jobs, the 1099 where there's no benefits, there's no 401k, there's no nothing. And I think that's just another direct correlation to why wages aren't growing in America today, and it's really hard to understand how we come out of this the other way around. And I just really, I'll say it. I've said it a bunch of times. I'll say it again. I don't even want to think about what would happen if Trump hadn't won. How bad would it be, Jason? You know what's so funny? And I think about it before. Like, do you see that guy that stole that kid's hat and threw a drink on him? Of course, we find out that the guy that did that to that 16-year-old kid, he actually worked at that place that the incident happened. He got fired, but the guy's been convicted of burglary, been convicted of DUI. Right, the guy's got a huge criminal record. It's ridiculous, right? And I think about, imagine how big Trump would win if the election was held today. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it was close. It wouldn't even be close. And I don't understand. What more can the guy do?
Yeah, I think we're getting, over the course of time, we're getting used to a crappy jobs market, and I think it's all leading to some sort of universal basic income or guaranteed basic income, or they try to keep the population from pitchforks and the torches, by giving them a check every month and just to keep them quiet. I think that's where we're moving.
You hear a lot about that too, don't you? You hear especially from the dot-commers, the Zuckerbergs and Bill Gates and some of those Bezos, right? You hear these guys talk about that, and I guess that makes sense, right? And I always talk about how big the debt's going to grow over the next 10 years. I think, Jason, you're going to be right again, right? Can we see just another 10 years of the same type of shift of jobs where, to the point where, think about it, like the jobless claims number every Thursday, I tell you, it's not even worth reporting anymore. Because the jobs we get today, you can't file unemployment. Patriot Radio News Hour, Jason, always great to have you. You bring so much to the program. Thank you so much. Everybody, enjoy your weekend. Have a great one. We'll all be back on Monday. Stay out of the heat if you can.